welcome back. We're going to talk about activity schedules. So, activity schedules are another way we can modify the environment to reduce problem behavior and increase all the behaviors that we want to see. So, what are activity schedules? They're visual or written cues that tell an individual what activities to do and in what order. There's a lot of ways we can create them. They all look very different. We can use pictures, words, objects, or technology. There are apps today that will create these for you. Activity schedules teach independent task completion. So the goal of activity schedule is to teach individuals to independently complete tasks and activities. They're a powerful tool that increases independence and reduces reliance on prompts and builds predictable routines for our learners. Increasing independence is a huge deal. A lot of times we may be helping them through the schedules, but eventually we want them to be able to follow a schedule independently. It allows them to complete the task without adult prompting, like everybody telling them what to do. This reduces reliance on prompts. It builds self-reliance and autonomy. Even if you're looking at a task analysis, you can use pictures to break down the task so they can engage in it on their own. This helps transitions. If you're having transitional problems or behavior during transitions, this is the best thing to try to use to see if you can stop that problem behavior. A lot of times, transitions, the problem behavior associated with them is because the individual didn't know what to expect. When we don't know what to expect, we have anxiety. This is common for all people. You're not sure about the transition and you're gonna have an increase in anxiety. The best example of this is airports. When your flight's delayed and you're not sure when your flight will be, there's nobody in the world who wouldn't say that at least produces some sort of anxiety. I think if that doesn't, you might have some mental health difficulties in that you might have zero anxiety or not have enough emotions in given times. So, when we can help somebody understand where we're going, what we're doing day to day within their schedule, it will decrease this problem behavior. It builds routines and predictability, which will establish these consistent patterns that become familiar and comforting. A lot of autistic adults have expressed that the more routine they have, the easier time they have. And so it is something that that specific disability has found to be really helpful, the more routine they have. Examples of activity schedules like a morning routine: brush teeth, get dressed, eat breakfast, pack backpack. A work task: complete worksheet, clean desk, read a book. For like independent time, they give the students like 30 minutes independent time, and that's the routine they follow. A play schedule: like first we build with blocks, then color, then play with puzzles. So you can build these out for all day long, for a specific period of time. So there's a couple different ways to do activity schedules. The first and the easiest is probably picture schedules. We use pictures, photography, or icons representing each activity. We can do a written schedule for learners that can read. You can just write it down. Object schedule: real objects represent activities for learners, so they're just objects. For this one, this is how I was trained. I'm not seeing it done as much, but I always loved it. So a lot of people with developmental disabilities struggle with independent time or recreation time, like where they have nobody working with them. They just need to do something. We would get these large storage bins with drawers, and in each drawer we would place a close-ended activity. An activity that ended, like complete a puzzle, color this page, or read this book. We'd put one in each drawer, and they would learn that they would go through each drawer, finish the activity, put back, close it, open the next one. And so this built in kind of almost a routine for their free time. Parents could utilize it at home, like go do your drawer activities. It gave them structure. These don't have to be things they don't like. It can be things they like. It's hard to put that all together cognitively and pick an activity. And a lot of times, like, I think I've heard this expressed from autistic adults, like when activities weren't close ended, it just seemed like it would go on forever. Like pretend play with like dolls. When does that end? When am I done? You can do those less close-ended activities with a timer, like play for 10 minutes. And that's how we would add those in if you wanted a child to or a learner to engage with those activities. But that was like a great thing. I taught everybody. I use that with every one of my learners. Everybody really enjoyed it. Families really enjoyed it. I just don't see it utilized as much anymore when I'm seeing people do this type of therapy. Electronic scheduling, apps, timers, videos that will guide the learner through the steps of everything that they're going to do. How do you introduce a schedule? First, you're going to model the schedule, show the learner how to follow the steps of the schedule step by step. Then you're going to provide prompts, offer help if needed, such as gestures or verbal cues, so each prompt. You're going to fade those prompts really gradually, so slowly let the learner do more and more on their own. And then you're also going to reinforce the correct use. So as they are better at the schedule, you're going to reinforce that. And as they use it, you'll give them more reinforcement. This shouldn't be adversive. I wouldn't put the adversive stuff on the schedule initially. Once they're used to the schedule, then we can add the more adversive things like the math homework or whatever that is, getting dressed program or whatever programs they might not like. But you start with things they're totally cool doing and probably enjoy at least a little bit. And that way they just understand what the schedule is and how we're going to utilize this. And then you may introduce the harder things that they're struggling with. To do this, start with 2 to 3 simple steps, like a really easy schedule. And same with the drawers. We would start with just the 3 drawers or the 2 drawers. You can get them, the plastic bins, they're at Target, Walmart, everywhere. And then there's some with like 6 drawers. So we'd move to the 6 drawer. So we'd increase the time on this independence time, these activities. And, parents just, I can't tell you how much parents enjoyed that. They would tell me they use it all the time and they'd get them new things that were exciting and put them in all the drawers and say, go check out your drawer. It just gave them structure for free time. Use clear, visible, attractive visuals. Choose visuals that are uncluttered, colorful, and engaging for the learner, and they understand what they are. Place schedules where they're easy to access so they can be a part of it and touching it and pointing to it. Celebrate any small success. If they use a schedule correctly, even for a small step, celebrate that and adjust based on learner need, length, and format. Sometimes it takes time to build up to where you can have multi-step schedules or where you have lots of things on the schedule. So you have to keep in mind just their developmental age, their actual age for this. When you're working with really young kids, you might only be able to get 3 and be successful with 3. It's hard for their brain to process that long in the future. So you just keep doing 3 and then you reset and do another 3 to show them what's happening next. There's some common mistakes we make here. One is we put too many steps on. These feel so good to me because it's so structured. I do it myself. I'll make myself a schedule for the day. Like, these are the things I have to get done. I'll do this first, then this, then this. And that always has felt really good to me. So I want to put everything I'm going to do with that child on the schedule. And I want to have like 10 spots on my schedule, but a lot of times that's just difficult. Like, their brain can't process that much in the future. So you have to make sure this is individualized to where they are with processing the idea of a schedule. Not fading your prompts, a lot that happens a lot. Like, you're not fading out the prompts. Eventually the schedule should be completely independent where they walk to it and they go, oh, this is what's next. And maybe there's materials you have to pull out for that. That's fine. You pull that out. But you wouldn't pull that out before they acknowledge that this is next, because they should be prompting you for their next activity. And what this will do is, if we think about high school or college, they're not going to have you. And so we can create these schedules for them to get through their college day or a job. You know, I had that girl I mentioned before, she worked at Barnes and Noble. We had a schedule for what she should do at Barnes and Noble. And eventually she was independent with that. She could walk in, follow the schedule, and be successful at that job without me. Ignoring preferences. You don't want to put things they don't like too much. You don't want to match the format they like. It can be adversive and not motivating to them. So it's really important that we're keeping their preferences in mind. Here's the examples again: brush teeth, get dressed, eat breakfast, pack backpack, complete worksheet, clean desk, read book, play with blocks, color, play with puzzles. Like that play schedule could easily be put in the drawer system, and then they're just opening the drawers as part of their schedule. Introduce a structured sequence of activities. Activity schedules provide a visual or written cue to guide individuals through a set of tasks in a specific order. It improves transition and reduces problem behaviors. The predictable nature of the activity schedules helps smooth transitions between activities and decreases disruptive behavior that can arise from uncertainty. Independence and reduces our reliance on adult prompts. Eventually, they should be able to follow these. With 0 to no prompting, they could walk into a room with a schedule and just follow it all by themselves. And it builds routines and predictability, which we all prefer in our life. I'll see you next video.